We're going to call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Kerrville City Council on Thursday, October 20th, 2016. There's two items on the agenda. The first item is a consent agenda. These items are considered routine and can be approved in one motion unless a council member asks for separate consideration of an item. It is recommended the City Council approve the following items for which will grant the mayor or city manager the authority to take all actions necessary for each approval. There's only one item. Is there any discussion on this item?
Move approved. Since I took it off last time, I move approved.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor with uplifted hand. Carries 3-0. Next item on the agenda is applications and appointment thereof to fill a vacancy. Kerrville City Council, place 3. I have several people who have requested to speak on this item. We've all been given applications. Applications are all public information. Hopefully, if you're really interested, you've taken the time to read those applications and compare them and contrast them like we have. Maybe you've even called some of the applicants yourself. That's obviously your right as a citizen to do that. And there was a mix-up on the agenda. If you do still have one of the other agendas, there is no item 1B. It's actually 2A. So I corrected it on your forms. I don't think we're supposed to write on these, but I did. So I scratched the 1B and put 2A. So first person on the, actually this is just the way they landed, George. I got yours last, so you're on top. So yes, sir.
George Broody, 1616 Glen Road. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I'm one of the applicants, and so I'm speaking on behalf of myself. So the question, everybody probably has an opinion about me one way or the other, but let's just speak to the basics, which is, you know, am I qualified? Well, I would argue that probably all the applicants are going to be qualified. I would also argue that probably none of them are more qualified than I am. I have showed through the last few years a willingness to do the work that basically you guys are asked to do already. May not always agree with the opinions I may have, but the fact is I'm looking up the same stuff you guys are, clearly have the willingness and the time and the energy to do so. I believe, well, over the last couple of years I've also been, you know, I've run for office, didn't win, but in this last election, it was actually pretty close. And as it turns out, the only remaining people that ran in that election that had more votes than me are on the council. So if you're going to use that at all, which I kind of believe you should, as a sign of the support of the people, I'd say I have that, as well as we weren't asked to do it, but I did go, since we announced this application, and went and got, it's not a binding petition by any means, but I went and got signatures of people that support me in this appointment, and it actually is over 450 names of people in the community. Whether or not they voted for me, whether it's double counting in that regard, I don't know, but I do know that currently I still have the support of a decent sized number of people and able to mobilize that support for issues on the council, which in my view is also another thing that the council needs to start doing a little better of, which is interacting with the people. Clearly I have the ability to do that. I don't currently have any conflicts of interest of any current issues on council, nor in the foreseeable future. Basically, as it was said to me, I own my house. That's pretty much all I own in town. So there's that. The other thing is, when I did run, I applied for the appointment. There was an open seat that was ultimately filled by Glenn Andrew, and he was kind enough to write me a little email after that the next day, and I'm going to take him up on what he wrote me, which is, he said, I do hope you will review and apply for a major city committee or commission, and you can be a positive asset. So in keeping with that, I'm taking him up and I'm applying for what I would argue is probably the most major city commission or council we have. The other thing is just, well, I would, with the support that I have both currently and in the most recent election, I would say that it's probably in my opinion, it's not necessarily y'all's opinion, but in my opinion, it would be pretty close to the same thing as disenfranchising the voters of this community to pick anyone other than someone who ran in the most recent election. Again, that's arguable, that's fine, but in my opinion, that's kind of what that would be saying. And seeing as how I had the most votes of that electorate, it seems like a pretty good argument could be made for appointing me on that basis alone. But thank you.
Thank you, George. Next person, Vince Vocal.
Hello, Vincent Vocals, 619 Wheelis Avenue. I applied for City Council Place 3 because I ran for the position in the last election. I feel it is my duty to represent the people that voted for me by applying. I also realize that George Baruti applied for the council seat Place 3. He too ran for the position in the last election and received the second most votes. I think it would be disingenuous to the people of Kerrville to choose someone that did not run in the last election when you do have two applicants that did. We both have time. We have both put in the time, money, and hard work. We both have been attending city council meetings as frequently as we can, and we both try to keep up with the current issues at hand. In my opinion, the council appointed Glenn Andrew for Place 2 due to the fact that he ran in the last election and was the highest vote getter out of those candidates that were not elected. I believe you should follow up and appoint George on that matter. I realize he may not see eye to eye with everything, but is that not what we want at council? I want a council who challenges each other and comes up with the best decisions. I'm also puzzled by the sudden show of interest by other applicants. Why did they not run in the last election? And council, if you could answer this for me, did you encourage any of them to apply? Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Bill Fitch.
My name is Bill Fitch, and I live at 403 Forest Ridge. And basically, I just want to kind of echo what George and Vincent have both said. After the last election, I did write to each, well, there's only two of you left, or at least up here tonight, and I suggested that George had gotten the next highest votes. Mr. Fine wrote back and said, I appreciate your comments and plan to look openly at all who desire to be considered for the position. There was another candidate that is not a current on the council, who should also be considered as he wished to do, if he wishes to do so. And if votes are a consideration, he received more than Mr. Baruti. I think we all know that he received more, but he also was only running against one other person, where George was running against two people. So with that, I just would like to suggest that you all, as they have both suggested, vote for the person who this public thought received the got the most votes, and seems to be the one that the public wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Peggy McCay.
Peggy McCay, P.O. Box 291464, Kerrville 78029. I too support George. I've not known him long, and I've grown to know him better simply because of his presentations on issues facing the city. And I found him to be reasonable. I like the way he thinks through the process of the issues. I think he's fair-minded. I also have found him willing to cooperate and listen to other opinions. So far, in what he's presented, I've not seen him challenged on his figures or his opinions. So I'm not able to take that into consideration, but I found that with him being fair-minded, I think he would be someone you could work with, and I think we would see cooperation among council members. I think he would be an asset, and yes, he did receive the second number highest votes, and had he been in a two-person race, I believe he may well have been the winner of that particular race. He has been at all council meetings, and being at council gives him the opportunity, if there is any rebuttal, he is here to do that or offer his opinion or something he would like you to take in consideration. I think he'd be a fine asset. Plus, George is younger.
Thank you, Ms. McCay. Robert Naiman?
Robert Naiman, 1800 Glen Road. At the City Council meeting of October 11, Mr. Andrew made an impassioned plea for the new City Council member to be a unanimous choice. And the implication was that all City Council members be present to vote. I think all City Council members should be present in order to represent the citizens of Kerrville on this vote. My wife and I submitted the following to the Kerrville Daily Times, though they chose not to print it. We support George Baruti to fill the opening for Place 3 on the Kerrville City Council. Mr. Baruti's community service, integrity, and exceptional knowledge of the issues facing Kerrville make him eminently qualified for the position. We believe Mr. Baruti will represent all the citizens of Kerrville in a thoughtful and unbiased manner. Mr. Baruti's dedication and desire to serve the community is evidenced by his 2015 and 2016 runs for City Council. In the May of 2016 election, he received the third highest number of votes for City Council. When Bonnie White's council position was vacated by her election to mayor, remaining City Council candidates Vincent Vocal, Jim Hart, and John Fleckenstein II endorsed Mr. Baruti to fill the open seat. Our hope is that this time the council will choose George Baruti. His appointment to City Council will present an insightful vision for Kerrville as the city continues its growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Naiman. If you've read the applications, George, I'm not taking anything away from you at all. We have a lot of everybody in here is qualified as with regards to the city of Kerrville. That was something you pointed out, George. And there's a lot of good variety of citizenry, leadership, all the way across the board. It isn't an easy choice. And Mr. Fitch, you're right. I did say that, but I also said if you're using that rationale, that's the way the vote would have gone, or that's the way the decision was made. That doesn't mean I use that rationale in that decision. I just wanted to clarify that real fast. I think it's the job of this council to decide the person who we feel best fits the needs of the city of Kerrville at this time. We have a huge decision coming up with regards to a city manager replacing Todd. And Todd, I'm sorry I did not say something at the beginning of the meeting. This is Todd's last official meeting. You know, even though it's a special meeting, probably not an easy one for him. But anyway, Todd, one more time, thank you for everything you've done for the city. But we have, with that replacement, that's probably a more important task, is appointing that city manager and hiring that person. It is actually getting a council person. Council people come and go. We make the decisions. The city manager runs the city. That's a very important decision coming up. And I know we're looking at all the qualifications for someone we feel will be instrumental in making that decision for Kerrville, not just for next year, for 5 years, but will actually lead several hundred employees and lead the city into the future. So with that being said, do we need to go into executive session too?
Yes, I think we do, but I'd just make one comment. Just,
Okay.
we had actually another, we won't talk about it, but we did have one application that was late, and so we can't honor that one. And we had very clear definition of when, delineation of when the applications had to be
Yes, sir.
published dates.
In response to the executive session part.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session, just a second. Hang on. So we can't talk about it till we get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry I didn't submit a speaker form, but before you go into executive session, I would appreciate the chance to address you as well.
Okay. Well, that's, sorry. Hold that motion. Just, it hadn't been seconded yet. Hold that thought. Let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, and again, I apologize for that. My name is Justin Mcdonald, 2956 Dry Hollow Drive. I didn't realize that several of the other applicants were going to be speaking, and so I didn't put my form in. But I do just want to point out, of all the applicants for this position, the will of the people has been mentioned quite a bit, and I am the only one of those who have actually been elected to the Councilmember Place 3 position before. In addition to that, with the unfortunate passing of Councilmember Stork, that leaves me as the last person to have held that position, which I believe gives me a bit of a head start in not having to stop and get up to speed with the issues that are going on in City Hall. I think that's especially important as the transition city manager comes on. We've had several other staff transitions. You know, I know how the police department works. I know how the fire department works. I know how the sewer system is set up here, the trunk mains that run through the middle of the city, the water system. I have a lot of the basic knowledge. I'm certainly not up to speed on some of the stuff that's happened more currently, but I have a lot of the basic knowledge and would be able to get up to speed, I feel, quicker than some of the other applicants. So I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, Justin,
Thank you
you.
again for your indulgence.
Does anybody else want to speak? Yes, sir.
Bruce Strachey, 821 Earl Garrett. You know, you guys do face a decision that is so much larger than just one council seat as we approach this. And so much has changed, not only in our country, but in Kerrville in the last 6 months as we look at the outlook and the changes in the economy, the changes with the council, changes with staff, and the situations there. And you gentlemen, and I don't understand why Mayor White's not here, but you all as the council have a decision to lead this city as you all feel is best. And we have entrusted you as the voters of this community to make those decisions. And I just, so often, it's people stand up and criticize you all. But it's really important for us to also stand up and say, we've put our faith in you, and we hope that you will continue to guide us well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I have a motion and a second, and they're holding.
I'm Mary Ellen Summerlin, and I live at 105 Turnberry Circle. I applied for this position because I've done similar work in the past. I've been a city council person and a mayor of Port Arthur, and I love the work. My husband has a pretty high-profile job in this town, and that's held me back from running for office up to now, but he's about to retire. And with his blessing, I sent in my application. I'm humbled by my fellow applicants. It's an honor to be considered. I admit I've never run for office. Well, I ran for Headwaters Groundwater Conservation District twice, but that's not a very highly contested office compared to the city council. And I'm just eager to do the work. I've been in on hiring a city manager. I've had some experience, not in elections, but in serving. And I thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
You're going to go into executive session, but as one of the people you're going to deliberate on, I'd like to cite the same code and ask not to go into executive session. The 551074B.
We can go into executive session and talk about the others, but if you want to exclude your conversation about you, you can do that. I already checked that rule.
Well, I don't, okay, I mean, you can do that.
That's what the city attorney told me.
That's fine, that's fine.
But we want, if you want not to have your discussion about you in executive session, you can ask that, George.
No, that's fine, that's not the reading that I have of it. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I have, anybody else want to speak? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor with the uplifted hand? Carries 3-0. We're going to go into executive session, and we'll be back shortly.
Just a minute. When I talked to everybody, except George and I played kite for 3 days. Mary Ellen told me that tonight is Tim's last board social, and you're really not even supposed to be here. And so she's going to be exiting I just want to say, so it's not that she's not interested. Her hubby has a pretty important event that she needs to be in support of, so thank you for coming.
Going into executive session at
5:20.
Actually, it's 5:21.
For another few hours.
Just put your mic on. I was told to tell y'all to put your mic on. We're back in open session at 5:45. There was no action taken in executive session. I need a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, after reviewing the applications and significant discussion in the conference room, I would offer the motion for Mary Ellen Summerlin to be place 3 nominee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor with uplifted hand. Carries 3-0. We are now adjourned.